Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today for a very special interview with the seasoned spouse. Our topic is PCS moves and PCS resources, and I've collected some wonderful experts in this field who are going to share some special resources with us today. So, Stacy, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stacy Heisman, and I am a freelance writer, a military kid advocate, if you want to say. I'm an Air Force spouse, a long time. My husband's been in for about 24 years. And before I entered into this life, I actually did special event planning, giant special event planning. I did the Las Vegas Centennial, which is Vegas turned 100 in 2005. Wow. So it's been a long road.
That's awesome. Thank you for being here today. Amanda, thank you for joining us from overseas. I hope that it continues throughout the interview here.
Thank you, absolutely. It's all a matter of our internet and working with the international internet to keep the video going. So my name is Amanda Chamias. I'm co-author with Stacy on Seasons of My Military Student, Practical Ideas for Parents and Teachers. I have my doctorate in teacher leadership, and my focus in that was working with teachers of military connected students and how do they learn about the students they have in their classroom. Military spouse, Air Force spouse of over 20 years, 4 beautiful babies, all in public schools, and just traveling the world with the family.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you were able to join us. And then I'm also going to connect you with the creators of PCSKid. So we have here Natalia. Please introduce yourself.
Hi guys, it's Natalia here, and I'm an Army spouse. My husband's been in the military for about 12 to 13 years now. We're stationed in West Point, New York at the moment, and me and Lisa co-founded PCSKid, which we're so excited about, and I'm excited to launch this summer. I have 2 girls, and I have 1 unknown on the way. That's about a week.
Wonderful. Congratulations, and thank you. And finally, Lisa, go ahead and show us your face.
Hello, I'm Lisa Roby. I am a military spouse for 12 years now. I have 2 kids, former teacher and business owner of a fitness industry, and now embarking on helping our military kids make friends during PCSing.
That is so great. I'm just so honored to be here with such a collection of people, and we're all military spouses. We're all parents, and we just want to help our kids through those difficult PCS challenge moves. And I know we've had some rough ones. I have 4 kids, and we have done some international moves with them. So we've been through the DoD schools, and we've been through the public schools stateside, and it's rough. So some of those challenges have surprised me as the kids have gotten older. We're facing different situations and different challenges with them. And I just wanted to give you each a chance to share with some of our viewers and readers, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges for military families, and especially for military kids, when they're PCSing? And have you had some good or some bad experiences that you've learned from? Stacy, would you like to begin?
I would. Thank you very much. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my 2 children that I have. That is the reason why I'm even on this video chat today, because they're the reasons why I'm an advocate. Your question goes right into the reason why I'm here, is that I really truly believe that of all the years we've been in, and my 2 amazing children, I've got a son that's 11 and a daughter that's 10, and this is their 5th school. So we've gone through so much. We move every 1 to 2 years. The last one was 3 years. But my point is, military families sometimes, I think, have 3 uncommon challenges that they don't even realize are challenges. And the first one to me is they really believe that that little flimsy manila envelope that they get at the end of, withdrawing is their education history. It tells them everything they need to know about their sweet little dandelion child. It's going to tell them how they work. It's going to tell them their friendship. It's going to tell them their social makeup. It's going to tell them their reading level. It's going to tell them what kind of teacher they want. And really, at the end of the day, it doesn't tell them any of that. It tells them it's a flimsy little piece of paper. It's 1 transcript. It's a final grade from 1 school. And it maybe might have a reading level at the most. But I can guarantee you the reading level that they have is probably different to the receiving school that they're getting. So one will have a Lexile, the other one will have an SRI. Other one will have an iReady. So it's all very mismatched. So to me, I think one thing that parents don't understand is how that challenge of thinking or assuming that that transcript is going to tell them what they need to know about their kid is absolutely wrong. Quickly, the other two are parents not understand the difference between the school systems. And I'll quickly say this because I know we've got a lot to cover. But education by itself is actually run by the state. It's not run by the federal government. So you have 50 states, and in each state you have multiple school districts. And in each school district you have multiple schools run by a principal. Each one of those have their own guidelines of how to accept new kids and what they will accept in placement and testing and everything else. For a parent to make the giant assumption that their kid, their receiving school is going to meet them where they are, I think is the reason why I wrote this book. I mean, reason why Amanda and I got together and said, parents have got to understand it's mismatched from the day you walk out of the school. And lastly, curriculum itself. Amanda and I laugh all the time because we were both stationed overseas, but we say in the book, mind the gap, which is a thing in London when you get onto the tube, but it's mind the gap and the overlap, which means, I think Amanda can say it perfectly when she talks, but you're going to be the head student and the behind student, and you're going to be the same. It's one student, and they may be way behind in math and way ahead in reading, but it's going to take them 6 to 9 weeks to figure it out. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I had one move that was so startling to my senses. I could not believe that and I not to say this, Liz, but as a seasoned spouse that I was, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, I didn't see it coming. And I thought, if I don't see it coming, and I'm invested and involved, and I write about this stuff, good Lord, I can't imagine what someone else feels, or how they would be taken advantage of by the two systems not talking. Right. My situation turned out okay, but I guarantee you it didn't for many others. So,
I can totally relate to that. I think it's a challenge every time. Especially every single time. Everything you experience with your oldest kid is a first, right? And so you're always going through new things. No matter how many times you've been through it before, you're always going to have an oldest kid going through something new. So
something new, exactly.
Amanda, what do you want to share with us about a challenging PCS move, or what you think is an important thing for military kids to overcome?
Sure, absolutely. I often have to, play that balance between teacher and parent. I have 4 of my own kids going through the system, but I started off as a teacher working with military connected students. I have taught in the classroom both on base, off base, overseas, and in several different states. And that's really where I started learning what challenges our students faced. And I just remember the very first time a high school student came up to me and told me that we were overseas and their parents had PCSed back to the States, but they stayed overseas as a high school student, living with another family, living with their best friend. And I was a new military spouse. I was a new teacher, and I looked at that student and I said, okay. And I really didn't know what that meant. And I couldn't understand why a family would choose to separate from their high school student. And, as a young teacher, and, I'm ashamed to say it, the first thing that came to my mind was so they could graduate in a cathedral, because that's where our students were graduating. That makes for amazing pictures, but I didn't understand the connection. And it wasn't actually until years later when I've had several students tell me that, or several students talk to me about deployments, about TDYs, about, parents are gone, but they're staying, and realizing that that's a common theme, that my first time being introduced to it wasn't unique, it was common. And then I started doing research and figuring it out, and started training other teachers if this is what's actually happening with our military students and why. And what I learned through that research was, had that student, my first second year teaching, had that student actually PCSed with their parents, they wouldn't have graduated high school. They would have lost their college scholarships, they would have lost their college admission slips, they would have had to done a whole new year of high school because their transcripts wouldn't have gone with them. And so I look back and think, what an amazing sacrifice those parents made to separate themselves from their child for a year to give their military connected student an opportunity to graduate and to follow their dreams, as opposed to follow the parent to the new location. So that was my first introduction of how does PCS impact their kids. Oftentimes it can create a split in families. On a personal level, My kids have always really had good moves. This last move, I prepared for the worst, and I prepared for everything, and everything in my mind went wrong. So we were the only kids on our street who were on a different bus, only kids in our neighborhood who were on a different bus, only kids in our neighborhood who were in a different class. So everything I had set up to make sure they started the first day of school knowing somebody, that all got blown out the window with the bus schedule. And I made the phone calls and I tried smoothing it over, and there was nothing I could do. So I just put my little babies on the bus and said, go for it. And when my oldest came back, I was waiting for the tears. And she said, you know, Mom, being on a different bus was the best thing that could have happened to me. I wouldn't have met anybody new. By the way, Mom, I got lost. I got lost walking from the bus to my classroom. But the place I got lost, I found somebody else who was new to the school, and she got lost too. And our classes are right across the hall from each other, and she's now going to be my best friend. And every day for that entire year, the two decided to meet in their lost location and then walk to school together. So what I perceived as about to be a nightmare, she perceived as an opportunity. And I think that's because of the way we had been prepping her all along for these new experiences.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think the social side of PCS moves is just as important as the academic side. And that's why we brought the creators of PCSKid here today, because that is exactly what they focus on during the PCS move. So Natalia, what do you think is a big challenge for kids when they're going through a PCS, and how do you think that you can help them?
I think, I would focus on just the stress that's going on overall in the family. A lot of times parents have a to-do list and they're so focused on packing, making sure that they have school records, as you guys had mentioned before, to transfer over or to just bring to help that process when their kids are moving to a new school. They have just so many things to do that sometimes kids can get lost in the shuffle. And also everyone in the family grieves in their own way. One child to the next can be completely different. And also there can be communication amongst the family because everyone is living in their own world. So I would say the high stress that's happening during PCS is probably the biggest challenge socially that we're trying to overcome with our business with PCSKid. We're trying to help that and trying to eat that burden for the entire family.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting a little bit of feedback through from Natalia's through Lisa's speakers. So I don't know why that is, but when she's speaking, you might want to hit mute just so we don't get that double speak.
Okay.
But finally, Lisa, what do you think is a big challenge of PCS moves, and why did you get involved with creating PCSKid?
Sure. I think when I first started realizing that PCS moves were affecting my kids, it was actually that their best friends were PCSing away from them, and we weren't the PCSing family. And it was awful. And I started reaching out to different people. I lived in a great big neighborhood. And for some reason, I have all these families, and I wasn't connecting. My son couldn't connect to another kid who wanted to play baseball just like he was. And I think that I attribute that to, we went to a charter school. So we weren't in the public school system. So we were in the public school system. We were at a different school. We're traveling a half hour away, and there just wasn't another child in the neighborhood that was doing or going where we were. So this was something that really affected us. It started us on our journey. And as the kids get older, it's getting harder to say goodbye. I mean, we just had our last day of school here, and my son said bye to his best friend. And it was heartbreaking because they probably won't keep in touch. He's going to Alaska, and I don't think there's a chance they'll be at the same place again. So I feel like for me personally, that's something. Also, Natalia and I wanted to touch on the fact that a lot of times you're leaving all your social networks. So if you belong to a church or a sports organization, as the kids get older, they're involved in like a soccer league that's not affiliated with the military, not affiliated with the school, something a little more specific. And you've played with these kids for 2 years, and now you have to say goodbye and you have to start all over. So we really want to focus on helping the kids get back into a community and to feel comfortable again.
I think that is such a great mission. And like you said, as my kids get older, I start valuing that more and more. When they were preschoolers and kindergartners, you know, a friend is a friend, and they're
Right.
a dime a dozen. And it's not something that as a parent I focused on a lot. And now as they're getting older into elementary school and middle school, I'm realizing how devastating it can be for them to lose those social connections and how valuable that is when starting over at a new place.
Right.
So we're going to talk more about PCSKid in just a minute. I want to go back to Stacy and Amanda, who are the co-authors of the book Seasons of My Military Student, which was just released on June 1st in paperback. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And very excited to see this resource for military families and for military kids. And if you guys just want to take a couple minutes to tell us, what do you hope that military families can get from this book, and how can they use it as a resource when PCSing?
Sure.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, sure. So, I mean, that's a great question. And, you know, just what we love talking about is the book and PCSing. And in the book, we really break it down into seasons. So we take the whole PCS cycle and we break it down into seasons. So we have the season of leaving, which, you know, stems from, you know, when do students even, you know, get their orders or the anticipation of orders, and how do you say goodbye? And then we have the season of arriving, and, you know, starting even before the first day of school, how do you help them arrive well and go through the first week of school? We talk about what we deem, you know, the season of growing, of, you know, are they in the right curriculum? Are they in the right classes? Does their standards match up to their skill set? And, you know, how are they academically integrating? How are they socially integrating? And then we have the season of thriving, which is, you know, they are strong into the school and the school has fully accepted them into their arms, but also the student has fully accepted the school back into their own arms. And, you know, the kids wearing the school colors and the school's wearing the military connected colors. And you know, how do you recognize when the student has gone from one season to another? But right now we're hitting the beginning of summer, and for a lot of students, they've already said their goodbye. Our last week of school is next week, but a lot of students have already ended the last week of school. So there's going to end up being, you know, several months and weeks before the season of arriving begins. You know, but we would almost say the day they say goodbye, as a family, you're already in the season of arriving and already preparing for that first day of school. So anybody who's picking up the book right now, it's going through and figuring out how do you prepare for that first day of school. So, you know, three kind of tips from the book is going back to what Stacy said, is, you know, the little paper that the school gives you with your transcripts. How do we blow that up into something bigger? And how do we blow that up to include the transcripts, of course, but what else can we add into it? You know, if there's still time, can we have a teacher write almost a recommendation letter of who is this child walking into the classroom, or sports or coaches, or, you know, whatever activities, you know, write that up and put that into the students' almost official records. Parents, you know, we're going through, and every day I'm putting papers into the recycling bin, but some of those papers I'm pulling back out and putting it back in the envelope, saying, you know, this really shows what my student is capable of. This really shows what my student needs help on. So when registration time comes, they can look and go, oh, we know the exact teacher you need, or we know the exact placement you need. So it's building up, going from, you know, a little thing of transcripts, building up to something bigger. So that's something that, you know, people can work on over the summer. But really, it's using this time also to work with a student and building, what questions do they want to ask when they show up? What questions can they already start researching? You know, can they start researching now what activities they want to get into or try or experiment with or get back into because of, you know, what they've done in the past, and what questions do they want to ask? Again, as a high school teacher, I always say, high school students, you need to ask about your transcripts. How are your classes going to move over? How is that going to impact your graduation requirements? Even as a freshman, they need to start thinking about, how am I going to graduate in 4 years? So looking at and asking those types of questions and preparing for that first day of school. And it's nice if it's summertime because you have that little extra time and activity.
Right. I really enjoyed some of those very tangible and actionable ideas that you had in the book. Like I said, as a parent, when my kids are getting older, it's a new situation every time we move. And there were things that I would not have thought to include in their transcript or in their PCS binder, that because of the book, I think you had some really great ideas. So I appreciate that. Okay, so Amanda, thank you for sharing with us some of the tips from Seasons of My Military Student. Stacy, is there anything you wanted to add?
Absolutely. And it goes back to the reason why we wrote this book again, that there are lots of fabulous stuff out there for military families. MIC3, which is the Military Child Interstate Compact Coalition, is a huge win for military families and education. I mean, there's a lot of things in there, but there's a lot of things that are not in there. And as a parent, you have to know what's covered and what is not covered when you transfer schools. You can't assume that, oh, well, why aren't they accepting this AP class? Well, they don't have to. So it's important. Why we wrote the book is really to make sure that parents advocate for their own children. Do not leave it up to someone who does not know who your child is. Do not leave it up to the gatekeeper who sits at the front office and tells you no the minute you walk in the door, when you know the answer is yes. So I think, and I'm not a wallflower, as you can probably tell. Like I mean, I know what I know. And I think it's important for military families to use this book as a resource to educate themselves on how to transition their child, their student, no matter what age, from school to school, with the most minimal impact on their academics and their social connections, which goes back to PCS Kids and why it's so important to be able to have those social connections. And Amanda and I really stress that teachers and parents are really, at the end of the day, the boots on the ground for military connected kids. The policies are the overarching cover, top cover I like to call it, but the teachers and the parents are the ones who know your child. They're the ones who's got to advocate, and this book will help them.
That's excellent, and I'm so appreciative that you wrote it. I really like your message that the parents need to be the advocates for their own kids. And we were talking about this a little bit. As our kids get older and as we face new duty stations and different moves, we go through different stages and different needs of our kids. And that's what I like a lot about this idea behind PCSKid, that you're teaching the parents to advocate ahead of time to help their kids make those social connections, to help them find friends, maybe even before they move. So Natalia, do you want to tell us a little bit about PCSKid, why you created it, and how military families can use it as a resource during a PCS move? You have to unmute though. There you go, thanks.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so PCSKid is a social networking site that we created. It allows parents to create a profile, a family profile, and then within that family profile, you can add multiple profiles for your children. So they each have their own unique survey that they have to fill out so that you can find out about each child, and then we can match each child within your profile to other kids. We created an algorithm, and it allows kids to be matched according to likes and social preferences within close proximity to other kids. We also have an option that you can search by special needs, languages, spoken, religious preferences, if you desire to search by any of those specific criteria. And I think the most exciting feature is that military families can find these matches before they PCS, after they've PCSed, or even while they're already at a location and they've been there for a while and their friends left and they're now trying to find new friends.
I think that is just brilliant. If we'd had something like that during our last move, which was really tough for my oldest, I think getting her settled socially a little bit quicker would have made a huge difference. And we tried to, just sign up for sports teams and check out Girl Scouts, as quickly as we could, because that's what we knew that she'd been interested in before. But it definitely took time for those friendships to form and to figure out, who was going to be in her school and in the troop or on the team at the same time. So having a website right there at your fingertips that you can start searching and prepping even before you move, I think is brilliant. Lisa, did you want to add anything about PCSKid and how you hope that military families will be able to use the resource?
Sure. So as we know, we're moms, and we know that some kids prefer one-on-one play while others would prefer to be in a group. So we designed it so that you can create a group meetup and have a football game for your kids of the same age, or a tea party for kids of the same age. Or you can meet one-on-one, and some kids just do better in that environment. And then some other applications we had thought of were, my neighbor actually across the street, they were stationed in Korea, and her kid learned to speak Korean. When she got here, she couldn't find anyone that could speak Korean with her child. Now, in a military post, most likely someone else also had been in Korea, especially at a big one, and you might be able to hook those two kids up. There are some other options that we thought of. For example, if your child has special needs and you would really like them to connect with another child with the same special need, there's some camaraderie there, and they could meet. Allergies, if you have a child with specific allergies, you might want them to hook up with another child that has allergies just like them. And then once that relationship has been formed and you're comfortable with each other, you would love to send that child over to their house knowing that their parent would take as good of care of your child as they would of their own. So I think those are just some of the applications that PCSKid has to help our kids get socially comfortable quickly.
I love that. I think it's just a really great idea, a very new and modern way to just give military kids that leg up when they first get to a new place, or even before they get to a new place. How wonderful would it be if our kids could start talking online and connecting with someone already at their base? You know, the service member gets a sponsor sometimes when they move overseas or when they move to a remote location, and military kids don't get sponsors, but it'd be wonderful to have that connection ahead of time so that they can have a face and a name, that they know someone who will welcome them and be interested in the same things they're interested in before they even get there.
Do you mind if I add one more thing? I'm
Sure.
sorry. As you were saying that, it jogged my memory to a couple of times when we've gone to MWR functions. And I know it varies from base to base what you call the readiness group, but they'll have them for children, and we will show up with our kids, and there will be a bunch of 5-year-olds and not a bunch of elementary age kids. And so what you can also do is create an event and invite children of your child's age and personality even, and then ensure that they'll be at that function. So I think it's helpful for our military bases as well as the kids too.
For sure. I think as our kids have gotten into elementary school, you don't see as many of the mommy play dates,
right,
and the toddler activity groups. But those kids are still just as hungry to find friends. And even if it's, come hang out at the swimming pool on base, or come hang out at the park in base housing, having someone to hang out with during the summer in between PCS moves or right before or after a PCS move would be very important. So I'm going to have to wrap this up because I do have to go get a kid from preschool. But I'm just going to ask before we go, please share with us how we can access these resources. So Amanda and Stacy, tell us, how can we get a copy of Seasons of My Military Student? I know it's already available and it has been released to the public, so how can they get their hands on that?
Well, I think it's amazing. Amazon. It's on Amazon. But which is this really giddy, by the way, when you realize your book is on Amazon and you can get it on Prime. It's very cool. But also, our publisher has a fabulous website, militaryfamilybooks.com, and they actually specialize in military family books, from everything from deployment to spouse-related issues, really fun things for kids. So take a look at them. That's where you can find our book, and you can also get it on your Kindle, your e-reader, anything like that. You can download it too. So it's definitely available.
Perfect. So I hope that our readers will be able to get that either in paperback or in ebook form to prepare for their next move. And then Natalia or Lisa, tell us about PCSKid. When can we expect to have access to that and to start using that resource?
Okay, so we are hoping to launch PCSKid this summer. And until we launch, or if you want to follow along with us on our journey, you can follow us at Facebook at PCSKid Group. please come on and like our page and follow our story. We would really appreciate it.
That's great. So I encourage everyone to check out the Facebook page. You can like or follow the page, and then they will have all the information there as the website becomes available, and hopefully down the road an app as well. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so we will look forward to that. And
Liz,
again,
if you don't mind, really quick, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that we started a parents and teachers group on Facebook for military school transition questions. So it's Seasons of My Military Student, parent and teacher group, K through 12. You can look it up. It's open. It's a closed group. You just have to ask a couple questions. But if you've got questions about how to transfer your kid from school to school, that's the place to do it. You'll find hundreds of parents just like you and teachers.
that is perfect. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing that resource. So there you go. Now you know that there is a book for PCSing with your military kids called Seasons of My Military Student. There is a Facebook group for parents of elementary school kids to connect, and there is a Facebook group to connect your kids socially and extracurricularly with any interest or languages that they may have, and that one is called PCSKid Group. So I encourage you to check out these resources, use them during your upcoming PCS move, and let us know if you have any questions. We'll be happy to follow up in the comments. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.